We're headed live. All right. All right, I think it's working. Live. We are live. Welcome everyone to the coffee chat with the Biennial of the Americas. My name is Robin Swanheiser. I'm the program director here at the Biennial of the Americas, and we're really excited to be hosting this conversation today with three amazing speakers and our moderator, Matheus. And without further ado, I'd like to hand off the conversation to these fantastic speakers who will be talking about resilience, empathy in these challenging times with COVID-19. Thank you very much, and I hope you guys enjoy.
All right, welcome everyone. It's a pleasure to be with all of you here. My name is Matheus Ferreira, and I'm going to be the moderator for our chat today, our biennial coffee chat about resilience through empathy. So very quickly about me, I work for DaVita Healthcare, so kidney care. Of course, in times like these, we are in the thick of it, in the thick of the crisis. And I'm really proud to be part of DaVita right now because I think we're doing great work about connecting with people, really work with empathy and connect with our patients. And I'm really very much pleased to be here with three other amazing people that are two artists and one lawyer to also bring their own perspectives, their unique perspectives about resiliency and empathy, right? So how we navigate those spaces. So I just want to give you all a brief introduction about our three speakers today in our panel. So first, Adriana Ramirez. Adriana is speaking from Colombia today. So welcome, Adriana. Adriana is also an artist. And as I got to know you more, Adriana, I was really touched by a few things that I saw on your profile as we were chatting and discovering, learning a little bit more about you. I like that you work with the power of language, and then you think about concepts depending on circumstances, right? How you use language to question and promote human relationships. And I like that you kind of have four concepts about it, which is like to increase the awareness of people about position, posture, potency, and contingency. So I'd love to hear more about that in a second. But before that, Marisa Caicholo. Marisa is also speaking from Los Angeles today, right, Marisa? And also an artist here and the founder of Building Bridges Art Exchange. I mean, that promotes a lot of exchange between artists around the globe. She's also has a psychology degree, so there's a connection there for her between art and psychology. So very interesting as well to hear your experiences and how artists can actually collaborate in times like these, just to embrace each other, as you said it, in terms of like we have all this social distancing. So let's talk about different social approaches in times like this. And last but not least, Tyler Coombe is speaking from Denver here, like myself, Denver, Colorado, in the United States. Tyler is a shareholder of the Greenberg Traurig law firm, and he is a lawyer that's very much involved with litigation practices, white-collar defense, special investigations, and anti-corruption preventive practices. So as you can see, very much a very diverse group of people here in our panel. And just to kick us off, I would like for us to start, get us started from the basics. So as we're thinking about resilience and empathy, so how can we loosely define, just as a conversation starter, how can we define what is resilience and what is empathy? So anybody would like to jump in with their perspectives, please?
Anybody?
Yeah, any one of you three, come on, jump in. What does resilience mean to you, or what does empathy mean to you?
Well, may I?
Yeah, go ahead, Marisa.
I was thinking this morning about empathy, when especially because it's almost like walk in somebody else's shoes. Just being really in connection with somebody else's feelings and moments. And it's interesting because I was thinking most of the time we use the word empathy, and we say yes, this is a moment to have empathy. But also it's interesting because it's the first time that we all experience the same thing globally in the entire planet. And I was thinking about that. Most of the time when we feel empathy is, okay, it's refugees, but I'm not a refugee at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there is something else, but I'm not that, or I don't have the same feeling. In this moment, with whoever we're talking about, like all over the world, in India, or in Africa, or in South America, they experiencing the same thing. So I think it's a moment very specific and very particular for empathy, because it's a little bit easier to be empathetic, to be really in empathy with a situation that is so, is becoming so familiar. When I'm speaking about what's going on here in the United States, my family in Argentina are wearing masks and they're having the same exact feeling, which is the first time. So I think I just want to share that about empathy. I think at this time it's a little more global and easier to share that.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. So we're also speaking about how we're having the same experience, and we can actually be connected through that experience that we're all going through in different parts of the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. So Tyler or Adriana, how about resilience for you guys? I mean, what's your take on resilience?
Well, I can add to that. I totally agree with Marisa. I think it's a unique thing in many ways that we're all experiencing now, and that there are such common parts of this experience around the world, with having to abandon normal daily life kinds of things and stay at home and not connect in person with people personally and professionally the way that we normally would. But I think there's also an element to empathy, which is relating to other people and recognizing the differences in the experiences as well. And I think about resilience and how collectively the concept to me means, bouncing back, like recovering from something, responding in a way to return to how life was, in a sense, right? To maybe kind of maintain a continuity in your values and what your society, what your people, your family, your country is doing. And so I think probably collectively worldwide, we're all feeling that, like, we need to get past this. We need to bounce back and get back to normal. But what that means might be a little different from place to place. And I think that's where empathy comes in. We might want that, or that might look a certain way in the United States, but we need to connect with people in other communities around the world, in Central America, South America, everywhere. How are those folks doing with their getting back to normal? What does it mean? What's working for some people? What's not working? And where do some people need help with resources that they don't have that we might have in the United States? That's one example. So I think being empathetic in the process of rebounding and getting back to normal, it's like the rising tide lifts all boats, and we need to be part of that rising tide.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tyler. I appreciate that. And with that in mind, I mean, both you, me, and Adriana here, we are speaking from the US, right? So speaking about different parts of the world and connections in different communities. Marisa, I mean, how are things for you? I'm sorry, Adriana, how are things for you in Colombia? Because I mean, I'm also from South America, so I also have friends and family there. So how are things for you when you look at those two elements of resilience and empathy?
Well, I would like to start with my own idea of empathy. So I brought for all you an example of one of examples of my work, and this is about cube. And well, as an artist, I invest all that I have on convincing you all that life is an sculptural experience. This is the essence of empathy, because if we recognize that you are looking some colors, white, blue, and I'm looking at another tree that you are not able to see, and even is the most interesting, there are some colors that nobody can see, it's a blind point, we will be able to ask ourselves and to recognize you are looking other things that I am looking this. This is the essence of empathy, to recognize that there is no only one version. And it's better to start with asking, not only in other countries, just to our neighbors, really close to us. Empathy is something that we have to bring together right now, close to us, with the people who is on the streets. It's not far away. And resilience, the nice of resilience is maybe it's not only just to go back to the normal things, is maybe to overcome the difficulties that arrive to the other side as a better humans beings. That is real challenge here. It's like, okay, so what is going to, and it's not only that we have the same fears, the same hopes, but we have the same power. This is quite interesting. All we have the same power from our homes. That's it. It's not necessary to be a politician. It's not necessary to be a rich man. No, we have all the same power here, sitting in the living or in the couch, or just looking through the window. And about Colombia, okay, so it has been quite different from USA. I can speak about the mayor here in Bogota. She invited people to stay at home even before somebody just told us it was mandatory. And right now, I can tell you something really special that she is doing right now, because all the businessmen want to open the economy as well. But she says, okay, you want to be the economy and the city open away. So we need to have time, and we need your support to have the enough capacity to respond to the high level of the disease. So we need all this number of beds at the hospitals, all these numbers of team groups to attend the people at home. So if you want, you really want to push money and whatever you can to be ready to open the city. She has been a really good work here.
All right, fantastic. Thank you for that. And I think with those ideas, I mean, I love what you're saying as well about like the blind spots of empathy, right? So there are things that you are experiencing and feeling that there's of course common ground to all of us because we're all living into the situation, as Marisa pointed out. But at the same time, I mean, we have these unique perspectives about things, right? And Marisa, I would like to throw it back to you, speaking more about your artistic world, right? I mean, looking at the work that you do, given the social distancing that is in place right now, what have artists been able to do about trying to embracing each other in times like these? Since we cannot touch each other, we cannot be physically close, but what in your experience has been a way to increase connection, but also from the resiliency point to bounce back or to keep moving forward despite the challenging times?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the word embrace or embracing. I was talking the other day about embracing, and embrace is to be hold, or to hold other person. In this case, it's different. What I was thinking about embracing is the embrace is somehow to accept, to support a change, to accept a change. And artists are really great in embracing. Actually, it's interesting because I was thinking artists are the first to embrace new technologies and incorporate that science and technology. They really embrace what's happening globally with every single practice, social practice, within their own practices as an artist. And it's super interesting for me because I say, okay, right now is a moment to embrace the change. Artists are really doing that. And it's interesting, immediately, I was working with a lot of artists, and immediately I see from all over the world, because I have connections, I see them, they're doing workshops online, talks online, immediately. Artists that probably they never worked in that media before. And I'm not talking about institutions and organizations. Let's talk about that a little bit later, probably, because everybody's trying to figure it out a different way to function in a pandemic, in a very special situation, global situation as we are facing. But I think artists, they're embracing the change very fast, and they're really connecting with each other. They're forming these collective groups. It's interesting, here in Los Angeles, I was seeing and following some of the artists. First week of you know, of confinement inside their homes, and they were doing dinners together on Zoom and cocktails together, artists, you know, kind of gatherings, which reminds me or take me, you know, to the older times when they were gathering in this kind of different formats in France, in a different parts of the world with different movements, artistic movements that artists were gathering, which always are. But in this moment, immediately they jump to, okay, how we can readjust this situation, embrace the change, and how can we embrace the change? And I think it's really positive. And anyways, I personally believe that there was very much a need of change globally in the planet, included within the art scene, within the arts. It was a very much needed change. And this, I don't mean, I'm not a, you know, wishful thinker. No, no, no. I don't think it's going to be perfect. I don't think it's going to be that much change or no. I don't know. We don't know. But this is already a little door, a little open door for everybody in the art world, including in every level, artists, and I mentioned them first because this is the thing. We're forgetting that without the artists, there's no art world. You know, we're putting the museums first. Without the artists, there's no museums.
There are no museums, of course.
So,
Yeah.
So we're putting the institutions first. Without the artists, there's no institutions. So I'm just first the artists. I say there's the artist, there's probably a rethinking, a reset button. There's a little door of new way or new approaches that will be
a possibility, right?
Have a possibility to deal with. And I think in this case, I don't know, I'm probably feeling that the institutions will need to reshape a little bit around the artists this time.
Yeah, I think that's
this is a possibility to change a little bit the game.
The relationships as well,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So I feel positive about that.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think that you're bringing a lot of interesting things here. And I want to just like zoom in on one thing that you just mentioned was about the change, right? The possibility of change. And just bringing that idea of change, I mean that there is definitely the connection, the power of connection right now. Like you mentioned, the artists getting together online, and even like remembering in the old times and doing the art gatherings and things like that online. But also, I think that if we turn on the news nowadays, I mean, there's a lot of negativity in one way. I mean, we see all the, I mean, how dire, how tragic is the situation. But Adriana, I think you do a very, speaking of change and speaking of language, right? When we look at all this negativity, I mean, is there a way in your perspective that we can reframe things? I mean, since you do this work with power of language, looking at all the change and the possibilities that we have in this moment, to Marissa's point, how do you think we can reframe the idea of social distancing? What's your take on it?
Okay, thank you for asking me that. Well, speaking about the power that everybody has, that is a really good, interesting idea about language. Language is powerful. We can build future realities with that. I mean, words are the best way. Words are the best way to redefine our experiences. I'm going to give you an example. I heard 2 weeks ago from Vandana Shiva. She's a social and eco activist from India. And she says, what about if we change this word? So let's not speak about social distance. Let's speak about physical distance. That is really interesting because that is really what is happening. So there is something that I got to suggest to as well, is to balance this idea of physical distance with social approach. I'm not sure it's the right word, but it sounds well. I mean, because social approach is what is happening right now, where while we are starting to talk with the neighbors and to build communities. And even with the examples that Marisa told the other day, this time are the first opportunity where families are speaking together in Zoom. So after 20 years, so they have to learn how to use, the grandmas have to learn how to use internet to stay in contact. And now we are calling people that we don't call in our daily days. So this is a really nice suggestion to apply in our life, to understand this, that is happening right now, that's like a physical distance, but with a social approach. It's really nice, because this is the responsibility, this is the way, this is how we can work together.
Yeah, thank you for that. Because I mean, again, ironically, I think that even though we are physically, we have to keep the physical distance, but we are connecting more because we also have more time in our hands, right? So, and people are calling more, they're getting together more, they're like, they want to speak, they want to chat, and the families and grandmas, as you mentioned, they're learning new technology and finding new ways of being together. So Tyler, with all of that in mind, so we just took the perspective a little bit of the artist world, but also I know that you and I, we love music. We also have some things here connected with art in general, but looking from the art and business perspective. So how do you think that art and business might be able to collaborate to create more stronger and more resilient communities? I mean, do you have any perspective on that?
Yeah, a couple of things. And I think maybe a good way to talk about it is to build on something that Marisa said about the artist community and the role that they play outside of the institutions, because artists are always the people really paying attention to change and part of it, and helping people find ways to connect with the world and what's changing and what's new, but also express themselves, right? And to convey messages and those kinds of things. So I view artists as facilitators and messengers and people who tap into the creative and parts of all of us that we might not normally do ourselves. And so you think about the business community, I mean, we are all people as well in the business community, the legal community, but we're also faced with change, and we might look at it as on a personal level, but of course the business world and Greenberg Traurig as a big law firm, and thinking about our own people, our clients and the people we serve, how are we going to respond to that? How is the world changing? What are we going to do? And, of course, there's a role for communication and expression within that. I've seen in my experience over these past several weeks, as we as a law firm and our business, how are we going to continue to do what we do? And it's a matter of changing. I mean, it's a medium. I think that we are working within a medium, and the people we have internally and some external people as well are helping the firm, us as a business, provide services to people in the way that we always do and want to do and strive to do, but having to find creative ways to do it. And I think there's an art to that. There's certainly different media involved in doing it. We're doing one of them right now. So I'm struck by that it in a sense brings out the artists in all of us, and having to express and create and adapt to a new situation. But more broadly, I think that there's a need for a spirit of openness to the creative process, and where artists in the business community kind of meld and mix together. The outcome of that hopefully is one where we as a society can gain from this experience collectively and connect in a way that's not just for artistic purpose, or not just so that our business keeps working, or whatever the purpose. It's all kind of, I think it's very fluid, and it's all interconnected is I guess the way I look at it. I wouldn't distinguish the artist world from the business community.
Yeah, okay, fantastic, totally agree. And at the same time, I mean, you actually have a very unique perspective, because you do this very, I would say, interesting work about anti-corruption. So anything that you like to add or share with us, how do you think that this new reality is going to be affecting specifically the anti-corruption, let's say, field? I mean, how that might change things for you and your company?
Right, and it's something I think about daily now, and it's kind of in the same vein of those ideas. The work that I do mostly is preventive. And I work with companies who operate in countries all over the world and work with them to have an approach to business, to implement procedures and a way of working, but also adopt a culture of doing the right thing, of integrity and of compliance. And part of that is preventing corruption from happening, or participating in corruption in parts of the world where it just happens. It's normal. It's still a pervasive thing, especially in certain parts of the world. And it starts with, what are people doing on a human level? What are people doing in the day-to-day of doing their business? And rarely is it somebody who's an actual like bad person with bad intention who gets involved. It's a kind of an amazing phenomenon that it's circumstantial. It's people in a business situation responding to incentives, and in a circumstance where something improper may occur. And it's to identify those situations, and to identify those situations and prevent those things from happening. I work with company leadership, leaders of all levels in companies, and the people themselves in those situations. Mm-hmm. And it's about communication and understanding. So in the midst of all of this crisis and the world turning upside down and communication being strained, or at least changing, interpersonal connection changing, it's a big challenge, because at the core of the process to guide people on and to keep them on the right path to avoid problematic situations is connection, understanding, and awareness. And so as soon as you can't connect in the same way, then opportunity might change. A central part of my practice is doing risk assessment and helping a company look at what they do and where and who they're working with and third parties that they may be working with, and where is there opportunity for things to kind of go sideways. And in doing that risk assessment, part of it, a central part of it now, is how are we communicating? How are we, missing opportunities, missing potential vulnerabilities within our operations because of this crisis. So we have to recognize that this is changing a risk profile for a business.
So thank you for that, because the rules of the game for the business are definitely changing. We're definitely seeing all of that. And I think that another field that is being deeply affected is also education, not only business, right? I've seen a lot of my friends here, for example, in town in Denver, that have now to do homeschooling and being like parents and teachers. So I would love to actually get your perspective, Adriana, about looking at art and education. How do you think that art can play a role in education? Because business is changing. We have a lot of changing happening everywhere. Connection is changing. But also, how about art and education? And how do you think that art can be a vehicle to help us navigate better with more empathy and resilience through these times?
Well, I would prefer to speak about learning, because I don't work in a specific way of education. Sure. Most that I do is offering experiences about learning and giving the person his or her own experience to learn. And this is the way that arts works exactly, because artists, we are not guides, or we won't tell you what to do or what to think. We are just making the questions. And this is a really nice way to not only seduce, because what we need is to seduce, and then we can question. Because what arts can do right now, it's push limits, even to make, for example, a documentary work about what is happening with all the things. We have different kinds of work in this level of learning. Learning is about the students, it's about the own experience, and how can I invite you to recognize that we have the same questions, and give you the space and the excuse to respond to that. That is about the way I consider art can add to all this, what is happening. We can push the limits, we can invite people to push their own limits, and it's because the line between two countries, for example, between two people, is the best place to learn. something. And so we need to invite people to be there and to look, okay, but now life is pushing us to this line, you know, and we are really good on that, taking advantage of that and just making people aware about that possibility.
I love what you're saying about like going beyond the borders, right? Or going beyond the frontiers, right? I mean, how can we explore what's on the other side? So, Marisa, how about for you? What's your take on that?
Well, I can actually give you a little bit of an experience right now. What's going on? We have an educational program within our institution, within our organization, and our educational program works with 18 schools all over Los Angeles. Which is super interesting because suddenly in March, everything just stopped. And of course, it was really difficult. I think it was difficult for most of the schools and teachers to try to come up with the right strategy to connect and engage the students. I think one of the most complicated things, and I'm seeing as a mother, I'm a mother of 16 years old, and it's really complicated to engage them at home with the school work.
Yeah, most definitely.
And I think it's, you know, I was listening and reading about statistics here, and it's 20 and 30% of the high school kids that they're really engaging with the programs, which is super interesting and hard for parents and for teachers. So what we did recently, one of our directors, Petra Eiko, which is the director of educational programs, we start working with other institutions, art institutions, and doing this Zoom shadow days that we are putting artists inside their studios with the Zoom, connecting with few students only in the classes. So they're having a conversation, a direct conversation, and a walk through the students more in a kind of trying to really engage with what the artists are doing in the studios in this moment, and try to see if that works better than a regular, you know, just talk or something more historical. So which is great because I think they're having a good time, and she's implementing this little by little, inviting artists that wants to participate and connecting with the kids, with the high schoolers and all this from home. And so I think everybody this is what I was talking before, it's about reinventing yourself. This is a moment to reinvent yourself personally, institutionally, and from artists to whatever Tyler was saying, to companies, to business. We will have to reshape ourselves in general. And I think with education, it's exactly the same. My question was, as a mother and as a part of the building bridges as the educational, I say, how we engage with these kids? Because yes, they're used to play games, they're used to stay connected, but their brain is so fast. They're going fast. How do you really do this fast, the learning in whole process is slow. And these kids need this. So how do you engage with that in a more practical level? So I think that's my share on that, which is just an exploratory territory. Mm-hmm. And I think all of us, globally, we are all going through our own exploratory. We are exploring possibilities, experiences, and we're gonna be seeing from now in the next few months what is working and what is not working.
And I have a follow-up question for you on that. I don't want you to lose your flow here because I think it's very interesting. But speaking about possibilities and reinventing, there's art and education, that's great. And I love your perspective on that one. But on another level, we know that many artists are also like individual, independent professionals, right? So when you look at these challenging times, I mean, how do you think that artists are finding ways to create new revenue streams? I mean, how they are like providing for themselves? Do you see that also being a possibility?
I think it will be a possibility. Is navigating territory right now, and it's very interesting because most of the funding they're not for artists. And it's interesting because most of the fundings, they're going either to institutions, the big institutions, sometimes the biggest ones, and the artists are the more vulnerable part inside the cultural global scene, because most of the artists, they're self-employed. Most of them, if they're not having a teaching position, they're self-employed. They survive on exhibitions, sales, so my question right now, and something that I want to raise out there, is how we can support. One of the things that I did personally, that I come up on March 14th, the next day of the close, like when everything closed down, and I closed the door with the key of building bridges, literally, and I didn't return yet. It's been closed completely for over a month, the first time in 15 years. I closed the door and I said, okay, my worry was the artist. There's all these artists.
What's going to happen with them, right? Exactly, yeah.
On how, so I say, okay, let's do an open call. Let's share what they're doing at home. Let's share what they're doing in the studios, at least to have some visibility.
So just to try to create some sharing platform, like a means to create that visibility. Yeah.
And I think this is what everybody's working on, and it will be a lot of questions in the near future that I think anyways, they were needed. They were needed before this. So
and I apologize just for the sake of time. Yeah, that's great. And I want to invite Tyler back in here because, I mean, as you're speaking about the artists being independent and independent professionals, self-employed. So Tyler, I mean, we both work in the corporate world here, right? So as we think about empathy, because I know I'm in a very privileged situation working for a Fortune 500 company. I don't have to, at least not as of now, I don't have to worry about my income. But I mean, that would be like a very self-centered, individualistic perspective. So my question for you, as we move forward with COVID-19 and how that's redefining relationships and redefining business, how do you think, Tyler, that corporations might play a role in helping artists, for example, or other fields to still find ways to bounce back to your original point and keep on going? I mean, do you see any possibility of partnerships happening so we can support, to create more mutual support?
Yeah, I do. It's a complex and pretty tricky subject, right? And I say that because in my experience and in working within the law firm, and what are we doing as a business, and our clients who are businesses of all sizes, large and small and medium, what are they doing? And it's a couple of things. One is kind of going into a mode of preserving as best we can, taking care of people, ensuring to the greatest extent that people have a job, right? That they continue to be able to work and have a job, either now or something to come back to if there's a suspension in the employment. Nobody wants this whole crisis to result in people losing their jobs, their livelihood. And yeah, I think I agree. It's much more secure in a certain business environment than in others. So what to lead to the second point, I think while a lot of businesses are understandably focused on the continuity of their own business and preserving and helping their own employees, I think that there's another phenomenon happening as well, which is a reinvention of the business. And sometimes that means, whatever your business is, you're manufacturing or you provide some kind of service or whatever, how are you going to continue doing that in a new world, right? And we've already touched upon it. This is an opportunity, right? Like the necessity is the mother of invention, right? So people are responding to that and changing the way they do business. And part of it, I think, is creating new technology, right? Like we gravitated toward things that already existed, but there are people out there responding to this. And I think this is one of the positives that comes out of a major tragedy like this, that people will invent and find new ways, new media, new platforms, new ways to connect people. And I do think that out of that will be, I don't know if is the right way to, but in a sense, it's an opportunity for or pivoting to some, and hopefully that sweeps in. Also, our unemployment skyrocketing right now, so it's people of all different persuasions, and I know that there are a lot of artists in that mix as well. But as the new world emerges with new technologies and businesses that are doing things in a different way, the economy is shifting to maybe a recovery mode and things like that, that yeah, there will be opportunities for people to get involved and become part of that change into a new kind of post-COVID era. So yeah, I think that as the business community changes and shifts and deals with their own issues, they're kind of as a a secondary consequence to that, they're part of this brand new environment that hopefully where everybody of different kind of backgrounds and persuasions can thrive as well.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I'm also hopeful that organizations also will change their focus only about themselves and their own revenue streams and profit, and also look out more to embrace and to kind of like connect with other realities, like the artist reality, for example. All right, so let me just check with something with Robin before I go back to you, Adriana. Robin, just for the sake of time, would you like to have any questions coming from our live Facebook audience that maybe we can just throw to our panelists over here?
Back. Hi there. We did have one audience question to the effect of, how do you see curiosity as a part of resiliency, either as it relates to artists or in your field of work? So thinking about curiosity and resiliency, and what does that mean to you?
Who'd like to take that on?
Wow. Okay.
Well, what pops into my mind is as a component of empathy, and Adriana, I think that the cube concept that you gave to us might come into play here. And when we all met earlier this week and talked about it, we talked a little bit about your cube, and I have to say it's stuck in my mind. It's an interesting, it's very simple, but a beautiful and relatable way to think about it, right? If you can see maybe just the one side of the cube, your perspective on the world, or maybe if you're an open-minded person and try to see other people's perspectives, you see a couple of other sides of that cube, but there's still another side you can't see. And even as you were holding it, you could see maybe red and yellow where we could see blue and white. There's still the bottom of the cube. And I think if we're not curious, we won't seek to see other surfaces, other perspectives that might be beyond what we believe to be already a very open-minded way of looking at things. So to me, that's where curiosity comes in. Is there still yet another perspective, something else happening that you don't yet know, and seek it out?
Beautiful, love it.
I can add to that people who experience curiosity, it's because he really wants to search new things. And for people who really experience curiosity, it's going to be easier to change the way he or she does the things. It's something that I have for sure, because curiosity start from the point that there is another way to do the things. And it's really good to have curiosity and to invite to feel it in a really natural way.
I want to share something very short. I think curiosity to me is related to creativity. And when you are curious, you really can use all your creativity to work towards something that you discover. So I think we all going to be using a lot of that.
And Marisa, I want to, since you have the talking stick right now, let's say, speaking about curiosity and also speaking about our time, we're getting close to our time here. So to wrap up, so I'd like to invite all of you to bring your final comments about what brings you hope for the future. But also at the same time, if Marisa, if you could just plug in something that you mentioned to us this week, and I was also one of those things that, as Tyler just mentioned, it's really stuck with me. We spoke the idea of a mirror, right? I mean, how at this time we can also be curious about ourselves, right? So that's why I'm making a link here with curiosity and that idea of the mirror. And if you can just for the sake of like bringing your final arguments for the call today, how can you just explain to us that idea of mirror and future?
Yeah, I think this is, I don't want to be hyper positive. This is a hard moment, but I think we can use it really to for me, it's a time of introspection And when I was seeing is this global situation force us, each of us, to be inside a box, a house, an apartment, whatever it is that holds you in, which actually makes to another question to me that is talk about homeless, how they're dealing with this confinement, with this situation, where their house is an open world. It's interesting. Well, I don't want to go there, but just talking about the homes and whatever is holding you, it's actually forcing you to have a mirror in front of yourself 24/7. And the mirror is just to looking at your own life, your own self, from morning to night, even on your dreams. It's like you see your life. So it's forcing us to see what we really love, what we don't like about it, ourselves, what we want to change. This is the thing. It's forcing you to say, I don't like this. I just feel that it's the moment to change that. And also with so much time within our hands, within a space, it's actually giving us the opportunity to say, okay, I want to change that. Can I make a plan for me to change that? How I can change that? So that is a strategy, my own strategy, connecting and align soul, spirit, body, mind, and put it together in an alignment and see what I can do
for a new self, for a new version of myself.
And that way you will be better to the entire world. And what you will see in the mirror coming from outside will be more related to who you are inside. At the end of the day, the reflection of our world is what we have inside.
Who we are, right? Awesome.
So that's it.
Appreciate it. Fantastic. How about for you, Adriana? What gives you hope for the future?
I have a really nice experience about that because as I'm from Colombia, this is a crazy idea that I have because I had the opportunity to live in Norway sometime, and there we had to plan the things 2 years in ahead. But here in Colombia, we don't need it because we don't have winter, autumn. We don't have that, so we can, as at the beginning, in ourselves, we can go to the tree to just catch the fruit and fish. There is always food. It's not quite the same if you have seasons. So for me, the experience of future has changed, and I got the idea that the future is not something that comes automatically. So something that we can build. So and this is about, because I have been working on this several years, but now it's a reality that we need to think in future as something that we can embrace, as Marisa says, and we can sculpt. And so especially here, for example, in the equatorial countries, we need to change that. We need to start with policies that can be from long term, and our own decisions. It's not only tomorrow, because we need to change that idea of tomorrow is coming automatically. No, we need to work on them. We need to plan it.
Yeah. So it's more about like sculpting the future.
I hope that is the point. I mean, I'm going to share with you this idea about history that I have, because usually when I ask people about history, they say that history is about only the past events. The idea of defining history as something alive, it could be make us thinking about it has past, present, and future, and it
will continue.
It's going to be continue, and we are going the main characters of this living narrative.
Love
so
it.
It's going to change, and I think everybody's taking consciousness about that now. I hope.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Tyler, your final statements about hope for the future.
Well, yeah, I was thinking about hope in the future, and comments by Marisa and Adriana are beautiful and so well said. And to add to that, I would say I think about my kids who I've been living very closely with around the clock for these past several weeks, and what they're seeing and hearing in addition to me and my wife and people we know. The whole situation is kind of scary. You read the news, you hear people talking, and it's a phenomenon I've not experienced in my life, with this thing sweeping the world and it causing death, and it's quite scary, right? And to me, it's a reminder that fear is a very powerful thing. And what gives me hope, though, is that while fear is a very natural human feeling, right, and can be a strong motivator and influencer, I think even stronger are the more positive impulses that we have of love and empathy and resilience, of course, as we've been talking about. So I think about my kids and how they're viewing all of this, and my wife and I are trying to give them perspective as we deal with all of it, because it is scary. But we come out from this the other side, and we emerge back into the world, and it will be a different place. But I think it's going to be one where we're all motivated by feelings of positivity and connection, and building, like Adriana said, like building and being a part of the world being better than it was before this. Even though we've gone through something tragic and quite scary, even though there has been death and problems in the world, I do think that there's hope for a lot of positive to come from it, and for it to be a better place. And of course, our children will be a huge part of it. And I have to say also that, Marisa, as you described this confinement that we're experiencing, and it being a moment of introspection and reflection, that's awesome. And it makes me think, well, what are we all going to be like when we are released from this kind of captivity? And it makes me think about, well, maybe we're in cocoons right now and we all fly out as butterflies at the end of it. And that's what the world will look like when we come out of it. I hope so.
Thank you. Beautifully said. I love the way you just phrased it as well, making a summary of it all. All right. So I just want to thank all of our panelists. Thank you so much for bringing your unique perspectives to this conversation about resilience and empathy. So Robin, I turn it back to you.
Thank you guys so much. I think that was an incredible conversation, and I truly enjoyed all of your perspectives. And I just want to remind everyone that we are doing these coffee chats every Friday for the next 2 weeks. So tune in every Friday at 9 a.m. for more conversations on this with speakers from across this hemisphere. So thank you very much, and we hope you all have a great Friday.